Last time we looked at metal as a material. Now let's look at plastic as a material. Plastic is a petroleum product, and crude oil comes in at the refinery, is piped into a distillation column. Various products come off at different heights in the column, and at the very end, near the end, is plastic. And here's a diagram of the plastic getting chopped into pellets. They actually come out white, not purple. Plastic is made of polymers. You've probably heard that word. Polymer is made of a word made of two parts. Poly means many, and meros, the Greek word that means part. So a polymer is a molecule that contains many parts. It contains many monomers, and monomers are the small chunks of molecules that are strung together to make polymers. Plastic is a hydrocarbon. Petroleum is a hydrocarbon. Living things are hydrocarbons. And of course, petroleum was originally formed from plankton in the ocean, which was made of carbon and hydrogen. Polymers can be made of many hydrocarbon materials. So if they are synthetic polymers, using all sorts of manufacturing processes, then we get what we know as plastic. But in the natural world, there are many polymers also made of many monomers. Cellulose is a common example in plants. Polymers are made of many, many monomers. All right, there are two categories of plastic, and they behave differently. One is a thermoset. Thermoset plastics, when you heat them and melt them, a chemical reaction takes place. The chains of polymers form molecular bonds, they cross-link, and a thermoset cannot be remelted. It's a one-time melt. You might find thermosets under the hood of a car, some of those plastic parts around the exhaust. Those have to be thermosets so that they don't soften and melt when they get hot. Plastics which are used for microwave cookware are thermosets. In contrast, a thermoplastic is one that softens every time you heat it to a certain temperature. You can melt it, form it into something, and then you can take that something and melt it again and again. That's a thermoplastic. Here is a list of some of the thermoplastics that we encounter and some of the thermosets that we encounter. So for instance, polyurethane is a thermoset. Polyethylene is a thermoplastic. When you look at thermoplastics, you often see these triangular symbols with numbers in them on the product. And a lot of people think, oh, that means it's recycled material. Or at least that means, oh, I could recycle this. But it actually doesn't mean either one. All it means is the number inside stands for the kind of plastic it is. So, for example, number 2 is high-density polyethylene, and so forth. This logo system was developed by the packaging industry, and there's a story that goes with it, but we won't talk about that here because we have to talk about plastic. Here's an illustrated list showing some of the kinds of products that each of these plastics might be used for. Whatever they are, these polymers made of, who knows, hundreds and hundreds of monomers are, they're small, but they're really, really long, and they're kind of squiggly. So when you're thinking about designing a plastic part, you are designing a flow channel for these squiggly polymers. It's good to keep that in mind next time when we look at the design guidelines for plastics. We're designing a flow channel for polymer molecules. When we think about thermoplastics, the ones that can be melted and remelted repeatedly, there are two categories: amorphous, which means without shape, and crystalline, which means they form a regular shape. These categories of plastics behave differently. So amorphous plastics, like the top of this illustration, have a low shrink rate. After they are melted and then cool, they don't contract as much, but they have some other characteristics that we don't like as much, like they have poor wear characteristics. Crystalline plastics pack together in an orderly lattice, and consequently, when you melt them and then they cool, they have a high shrinkage rate. So as they cool, these lattices all pack together and get smaller. But they have good fatigue and wear characteristics. Well, this is important to know because you need to pick the kind of material you're using first, and then work with your plastic molder and your tool and die maker, who will be the mold maker, and they are going to design the shrinkage rate into the mold. So if your material has a high shrinkage rate, they'll make this mold cavity more oversized. If you're going to use an amorphous plastic that doesn't shrink very much, they're going to make it not very much oversized. And there's a real art to designing a mold so that the part comes out the correct size within tolerance. That all of this points to the idea that you need to select the plastic material first, then you design the part. And I get this from a seminar at, do I have, somewhere in here I listed the name of R&D Plastics, my favorite plastic molder up in Hillsboro, Oregon. They have been in business for about 100 years, high level of expertise and knowledge, work very well with customers. They really know what they're doing. And they put on a free design seminar about once a month. It's for customers, but they also include college students. So you are welcome to join in, and I may send out a mail message to you if I get an announcement of one of these seminars. They're just quite good. Anyhow, R&D Plastics says, first you have to figure out what material you're using. Then you design the part, because you need to know all kinds of things, including shrinkage rate. So you look at the qualities that you want in your plastic, and that begins to steer you towards the kinds of things you might want. So, for example, if you've got a little box thingy with a living hinge, a thing that can hinge back and forth many, many cycles, you probably want polypropylene. If you're making a clear window for an aquarium, like here at the Georgia Aquarium, you probably want acrylic. This one is 2 feet thick, and look how clear it is, and so forth. Finally, in general, we can't mix virgin plastic that came from the refinery with recycled plastic. Molders need to use virgin plastic with original pellets if they really need to control the characteristics of the product. So recycling of plastic is it's not truly recycling, it's actually downcycling. So you can't take a plastic food container, melt it down, and make more plastic food containers. You won't have an adequate quality. So when you recycle food containers, that material gets downcycled to maybe, I don't know, part of a park bench or something like that. Now, there are some companies that do true recycling, and in the Eugene Springfield area, there's a company called PacTech, which makes lids for beverage containers. and they provide their own recycling bins at stores. And when you have PakTech container handles, you put them in a PakTech bin, and they get sent back to PakTech, and they are truly recycled into more container handles. But PakTech is the exception. In 99.9% of the cases, plastic recycling is actually downcycling.